I got money, 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 money. Money on my bees, cause I'm getting all these honeys. I got money, 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 money. Money is the virus, cause these niggas acting buggy. I got money, 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 money. Money on my.
Welcome to the Genuine Content Pod with your hosts, Jay and Josh. Jay, what's good? We're back for another one, man.
Man, I'm good, man. You know, this is gonna be the third time that we said this, but damn, that intro every time, every time we hear this, man, I'll be hyped, man. This is our third official video episode. What this is gonna be? I guess we haven't titled which episode number this is, but as of the recording, it's gonna be our third video recording. So this is pretty good. But besides that, man, I'm good. Adjusting a little bit more. I feel a lot better now because I've been on my exercise grind. I know I told you off air. Been doing that insanity again. It's almost summertime. I get this not dad bod, summer bod. So gotta get the physical and mental health right before I start running, because I remember I told you I haven't ran in a while, and I guess for people who don't know, like, running season is actually in the fall. So like around September, October, that's when you, like, if depending where you live, like here in Florida, like you get a lot of 5K, 10Ks, half marathons. So hopefully I will be involved in that again. So I gotta get my body right. So, but I'm one of those weirdos who loves working out, kind of like, push my body to the limit. But I mean, besides that, man, what's good with you? Actually, hold up. The segment was a good segment.
Was really good, man. Had an interesting week. I mean, you talked about how we've done a few recordings in a short amount of time. Those have been great. Work has been a mission and a half. But with challenges comes new opportunities, and opportunities to kind of build your skill set. So I'm kind of in one of those dilemmas where I have to problem solve, but I have to develop the skills in order to do so. But it's going well. It did provide a lot of stress early in the week, I will admit. But nothing wrong with that. Pressure breeds diamonds, right? Funny you mentioned workouts. Today was leg day, and
the worst of them all.
I've heard. But you said, like, push yourself to the limits, man. It's hoochie daddy season coming soon, and
boy, I got me three new pairs of hoochie daddies. I'm ready.
I'm trying to get there, man. But
hey, I like Donna, because I remember when we went to Vegas last year for your bachelor party, I was the only one rocking the hoochies, man. I felt like I was alone.
Oh yeah, man. I was done. So funny, I actually saw a picture a year ago of me, and I was 30 pounds skinnier. Like, and so you imagine like a full year's workout routine, like especially on like core, leg days, like etc. Like really emphasizing that, like, I've blown up. I'm not even gonna lie to you,
man. I'm the opposite.
So I gotta cut like 5 or 7 of it, but we on there.
Hey, but I'm the opposite. I mean, you remember how big I was in Vegas?
Yeah.
No, I
actually need to hit through your sanities myself, but yeah.
Like I was probably like 180. Yeah, I was pushing heavyweight, man. I was like 180. Now I'm like 165, man. I've been changing it up a bit since I know I'm gonna start running again. I'm doing my best to try to like get as light as possible.
Jay, this might be the first time since I've known you that I weigh more than you.
That is true, because I've always been the heavier one. Because for some reason I'm the one who lifts way too like more than both of us. Like, I'm the one who's heavy on that.
Well, times have changed, my guy. Times have changed. I'm at a nice 168 right now. But
that's crazy. Yeah. I'm trying to get to at least between 155, 160. Then I feel like I'll be at a comfortable running weight for my knees.
Gotcha. Yeah. My goal is 160. That way I'm athletic enough to still hoop, but not get posted on.
Oh no, yeah, I'm about to start hooping again soon. My cousin's boyfriend, he's like, he was like over here a couple weeks ago, and he's like randomly talk about playing ball. He's like, hey man, don't you play ball? I was like, yeah. He's like, we out. I said, thank God, man. I need somebody to hoop with.
For all our listeners, if you can hoop, it is the best cardio possible. Like it's a combination of explosiveness, power, cardio, like speed, agility. You can't beat it. You really can't.
Hey, and to take a 180 from what we're talking about, all this health and this goodness. I know we talked about this last episode, but the Simplies.
Yeah. It gives you an outlet to enjoy a cold one every now and again. You got the Simplies.
Yeah, man. I'm on the Simply Spiked Kiwi Peach. My least favorite out of the 4 in the pack, which is the kiwi, regular, peach, mango, and strawberry. But
so it's safe to assume that pack is empty.
There's only kiwis left.
You gotta space them out, man. You gotta at least have a dud in the middle.
I will say, I would tell everyone, this is the summer drink. Like they're not everywhere. Like you can't get them everywhere. Like my brother lives in Atlanta, and you gotta go to like a Total Wine or like an ABC to get them. You're not just gonna find them everywhere. I think my sister got this at a Total Wine here.
I got you.
So
I would imagine most have not seen this one, but this is actually called Long Drink. Mm-hmm. And it's like a citrusy, I don't want to call it like a seltzer because I don't think it really fits that mold because it has a ton of flavor. But it's kind of a vibe. Actually had it at a festival, a food festival in Gainesville. They were promoting it. And so they've stocked it up in a lot of restaurants, like even your Publix, you get them there and whatnot. So it's been cool. Found a pack and I decided why not.
Yeah. Hey, for all the listeners and people who work in these companies, simply let your boy know what's good.
Or I'll review Long Drink trying to get more pub in Gainesville or Miami, etc. Hey, we're here.
I will review every Simply. I just love the Simply brand. Like I love like the raspberry tea,
the regular lemonades,
the raspberry lemonades. I love them. So
they slap. Whether it's by themselves or in a mixer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're good chase, man. Hey, yo, get the raspberry lemonade with some Henny. That's all I'm gonna say, man.
I swear this is not the template. This is not the episode. We actually have a very loaded topic. It actually lends well to the very start of Genuine Content, and really what we had focused on was having the hard conversations, right? The uncomfortable ones, and doing so in a manner that was civil, right? But many would argue that like being too PC or even recently the spin of and the argument of being woke has kind of derailed people actually able to have debate, argue, and do so in a productive manner. And so we're actually going to have a PC episode. And to do so, we know that we could not do this alone. We have a special guest with us, and we will bring her into the fold momentarily. But our guest, Andrea, is very, very skilled. Her expertise is in policy. And we would like to bring her into the fold to kind of help us with this discussion, especially when it comes to the political spectrum. And we're not politicizing this episode specifically, but that is a space that we can compare to the general public small talk, whether you're in your business office or whether you're having these debates amongst family. Walking on eggshells can be an interesting thing, right?
Yeah, and Andrea's probably like one of the best people we know, like in our inner circle, to like talk to us, educate us, and educate everyone else. Like full disclosure, like I've known Andrea since like in high school, since like 14. Like that's how think about how crazy that sounds, right? Like I'm 31, right? And I met her in 9th grade. So like, and she was one to always speak her mind. She'll put you in check. Like she gonna let you know what's good at all times, whether you're right or wrong. So exactly. So I know you met her a little later, but her personality hasn't changed from when I met her to when you met her. She's been the same person.
I just got older, more mature, Andrea energy. So, it was what it was. We learned, we grew, man, and we had some very good discussions.
But I mean, let's put her in. Welcome.
Andrea.
Hello,
How you
hello.
just
That
gonna
was
come
the
up here
best
laughing?
intro. That didn't make me feel old at all. Like I feel super young. 14.
Hey,
Honestly, Jay put some hairs, like some grays on me.
I wasn't even planning to say that until like before going. I was like, damn, I've known you since I was 14 years old.
Yeah, that's
Like
wild. Absolutely insane. Yeah.
That's
It's been a minute.
way back. And
that's half my life.
I don't want to add one more
My God,
layer,
it is.
are we all 2013 graduates? Is that
Yeah.
kind of the space we're in?
Yeah, the spring
we're hitting
13.
Spring 13, yeah.
We're
Oh wow,
hitting
so we're
10.
a decade old. Shout out to us with our 10-year graduation anniversary.
Oh, actually, yeah,
Those
it would have
gator
been.
vibes.
It is 10 years
Would've been
actually.
10, like a month ago. Yeah.
Or
graduations were
this
in
month.
between this phase. Yeah. So that's not to add more wrinkles or anything like that, y'all. My apologies. But
Not at all.
But Andrea,
Andrea,
definitely introduce yourself to everyone. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Just whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate the intro. My name is Andrea. I go by she, ella pronouns. I'm a Peruvian immigrant, and that's a big part of my identity, which is also a big reason why I always find the need to speak up on a lot of things, because I was raised in a household where that was something that we did all the time. A lot of the work that I've focused on has been in public policy. I've done work in advocacy in spaces for the ACLU and also the State Department. I've worked in different facets of handling different issues. I've done voter registration stuff. So spaces that need people to kind of have a tougher skin and like have uncomfortable conversations. Right now, I work in a space that is about gun safety and gun violence prevention, which is also a heavy topic and something that gives me the opportunity to start those uncomfortable conversations. But yeah, like Jay said, like it's been something that I've always prided myself with. I talk very frankly about a lot of things that affect me and affect other people, and sometimes it's not necessarily about convincing people. It's just about creating a space where people feel like they can voice their opinions, because I think the worst thing is that when you feel very strongly about something and you just don't feel like you have the space to voice exactly how you feel, because you don't have to agree with everybody, and that's okay. And I feel like sometimes younger generations, I'll say, don't feel all the time like they have certain spaces, and then sometimes are the extreme of like saying whatever comes across their mind. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of my backstory. I'm really excited to do this podcast with you all, because I feel like it's a topic that, like you said, started the Genuine Content podcast. So I'm excited to see what comes of this.
Appreciate that. And actually, it's funny because like me and Josh, we know like ahead of time, like we know our next 3 episodes, we're already aware of this, and we actually didn't even have this episode in mind. And you're the one who threw the idea out, all because of what happened episode 3.
Yeah,
episode 3 with the whole J.K. Rowling thing. And I remember me and Josh were getting feedback of that we were too PC, whether we talked about that in the podcast or whether we spoke about that in the IG live. But then you messaged Josh and said you would love to speak about this. So like, and I do appreciate that. And I feel like even after that, we always bring up some type of PC talk in whatever we spoke about, whether it's we had the episode about mental health, or we had the Month Madness about Women's History, Hispanic Heritage Month, Black African American history, and even a episode that's not released yet, but is about representation. That was more, PC and woke culture related. So all of it is funny. Like I felt like our theme with Genuine Content, it kind of surrounds itself one way or another.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
Yeah. It was so on brand with this this podcast that we could not have fathomed a better episode, and it really spoke to really what we want to have is feedback from our listeners and topics that our listeners kind of bring up for discussion and things that we can talk about in deeper context. And so for anyone who is listening or would like to, please follow us on Instagram at genuine_content spelled with K. We're also on Facebook, Genuine Content Podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever you find your podcast, you can find Genuine Content. And you can always on our social media platforms share your thoughts, opinions, feedback on any of our episodes, any particular takes you have. Please do so. And like today, whenever you view it, whenever you listen, what have you, you may have your own episode just like this. We love to uplift the people that listen to us and have takes and have opinions. And this is really what it's all about. So,
oh yeah, definitely, because it's not a podcast for us; it's a podcast for everyone. Like this is like the family, right? Like if someone has something to say, let's go. Yeah. Right? Like that's the best way to say it. Like, and I know we have a very engaging audience. The IG DMs it be flooded when the episodes release.
Yeah, I sometimes I forget that I have a 9 to 5, and I'm like, wait a second, I can't respond to this right now. But I have it in pocket, and I have a space to consider it and think things through a little bit. But Andrea, so why don't we get to it?
Yeah, let's do it.
And so, obviously, you know, we had wanted to kind of generate a conversation about political correctness, but I think it's very useful to get an idea of what does that term even mean within your world, especially when it comes to policy, because that's really where it originated from, right? So what does that look like in your space, in your field? And does that term or does that definition really even translate to like the general day-to-day vibe, like after work at your Publix or what have you?
Yeah, no, that's a very fair question. I think for me, and I'll put this disclaimer out there, although in my personal life, I may not have political correctness, for a very long time in my professional life, I did. So now in this space, I don't. I think after 2020 and after everything that happened with the pandemic, I'm like, why am I keeping my thoughts to myself in kind of environments that can move things forward? So for me, political correctness is basically not necessarily feeling afraid, but just feeling like you can't really say exactly what you're thinking because of the response that others are going to give you and how they're going to look at you differently. I'll put an example. In my previous life, I worked in hospitality. My sister is very active with Dream Defenders, which is an advocacy organization, does a lot of work in the community. She used to go to a lot of protests. I supported everything she did. But when people would see my sister on the news at night, they would be like, oh, you're the sister of the protester. You're the sister of the one that shut down the highway. You know, you would get those kind of comments. So I would never say anything back. So I would be politically correct, right? I'd be like, oh, okay. Like I wouldn't ever engage in conversation about politics. I wouldn't ever engage in anything that had to ruffle any feathers. So that's really what it is. Political correctness for me is like not ruffling any feathers, making sure that, you know, you stand behind the line of like respecting everybody and not like overstepping your limits. But now I'm in a space where, you know, having opinions is something that people are like, wow, that's great. You know, people are encouraging that. People are encouraging those conversations. So for me, it's like it's been two different phases of my life, and I know what it is to have to be politically correct all the time. Not for me anymore. So now I appreciate not having to be as politically correct. I'm sure that there's some spaces that, you know, people will feel like there's no option but to be politically correct, but that's really what the definition is for me.
Wow. Yeah.
I've left you pensive. Oh no.
No, not pensive, but definitely. Jay, I'm curious what your thoughts are, because I feel like because of our respective fields that this definition is going to differ. And so that's what made me very, very curious. Is Jay, like, what's your take on what political correctness means to you?
Yeah, okay. It definitely changed, not because of like where I work in like in my field, but I think ever since doing the podcast. And I've listened to a bunch of podcasts, and you know, a lot of them have the luxury of just saying whatever they want and they don't really care about the repercussions because they have a strong following. Then like a lot of them, for example, they came from sports shows or like they came from a video game website or whatever. Like again, video games and sports are like the two main podcasts I listen to. So, but if you're in these spaces, you already have a certain following without doing a podcast. So imagine if you do a podcast for your respective employer, and then what if you leave that employer? You just take those, you know, the audience with you, and they'll follow you wherever you go because they're not listening to like, oh, I don't care what ESPN is saying. I care what Josh is saying, you know, because I respect his opinion. So if he goes to Fox or he just does his own podcast, I'm going to do that. So with a lot of them, they say whatever they want to because they know I have like whatever hundreds of thousands of listeners. So they're not starting from the ground up. So for us, it's like we're starting from literally the ground up, creating our own podcast, creating our own brand and being politically correct, being PC is like how I think of it is like saying things without like kind of hurting someone's feelings, like withholding some truths to appease others somewhat. And then in my field, like I work in the hospital / mental health field, like I don't think I have to be PC or anything like that because when I work with like either my clients or I work with administrators, like I work in the administrative section of like the mental health. So like for me, it's like a lot of them come to me and such, and I'm one. I'll tell you how it is. I don't really care. Like if you're not doing a good job, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm like, yo, like the numbers aren't where I want them to be. Like you got a boss to look up to. I got a boss to look up to. We got to hit these numbers, or like, you know, these are the benchmarks that I'm expecting you. Like, why you ain't hitting them? Like, and it's funny because in the position I'm at now, I'm the new person. So they thought, for example, like, oh, you kind of push me over. It's like, no, you got the wrong one. I'm the stern one. Like they hired the right one. So when I came in and dropped the hammer, it's like, oh, I don't really care. I'm not really here to make friends or anything like that. I'm here to do a job. So like me being PC at work is like is non-existent because I don't care. I'm respectful. I would say everything respectful, but like I'm gonna tell you how it is. But here in the podcast, like for example, we did a couple episodes that are kind of iffy. It's like, do I hold back because I don't know who's listening and I don't want to offend that person, then I'm canceled. And that's the other thing. Like if you're not PC, you're canceled. Like it's like one or the other. It's like two extremes.
Okay. I have a different opinion on it. And for me, politically correctness really stemmed from, I kind of think of it as like adjacent to code switching, right? You know your audience, you respond to your audience. And I don't necessarily think it's a way to avoid hurting people in the sense of if you can get your point across without doing so, then why wouldn't you? I do get that there's probably a little bit too far of political correctness where you don't even really say anything and it really goes nowhere. And so what are you really doing to move a conversation forward, to even really speak your point, or even when it comes to, I guess, debate, or when it comes to conversation, like really even share like a different side of something, right? And this is probably just from viewing a lot of content, like just in traditional media, where there's just a lot of nonsensical kind of cyclical conversations, whether it's in press conferences. That's really where I find PC the most. It's like press conferences, whether it's in any media site or even sports related, right? Like Jay, like how many coaches do we see like with traditional coach jargon, like, oh, you know, like we gave it our best effort, we're here to win, when in reality, like they played like crap, right? Like the numbers back it up, but you're not going to say that because like that implicates your staff, that implicates your players, that implicates a lot of people that, to be honest, you put food on their tables. And so it's being mindful of that to an extent, but at the same time, there's a way to do it without, I guess the term is ruffling feathers, right? We're generating controversy because in today's world, sound bites really slap. Like
Go
you can say
viral.
one
They
10-second
go
clip
viral.
and it just goes, it just goes AWOL, right?
Yeah, but
Some people are not more mindful.
but the problem is like you said, if you could say something ruffling someone's feathers, why don't you? Well, what if you do? And you're still like, it's like, no, you're still wrong, or like you still hurt my feelings, you still are offensive. Like there's no winning.
I think the most important thing about like the political correctness thing is like, yeah, you can potentially not ruffle someone's feathers by saying it a different way, right? But then how do you feel? Like you were more worried about how you were saying something and how somebody else was feeling. And then now you feel like, did I actually get my message across the way that I wanted to get my message across? Or did I do it to be like cognizant of their feelings? I get that there's a need to not have, feathers ruffled, but there's also a need to like take care of yourself in the sense of like, I'm not going to keep anything like to myself I'm going to think about it like 3 weeks down the line. I'm like, I could have said it just like this and I would have felt better. It would have felt more me, but you said it this way because you were thinking of them. I'm not saying be rude at every instance, at every opportunity, but there's some times that you have to really be like, you got to think about yourself first. And maybe that's a little selfish, but if we always are thinking about like how the other person is going to interpret it, we end up internalizing a lot of that. And then we're like, wait, what is my truth? Because I said this to one person, but I'm being, more honest here. Like that's a tough act to continue to balance your whole life. Because the code switching thing, that's what triggered it for me. Because code switching has been a very big thing for me. So I get that part of it.
Oh, I code switch. I would say that straight up.
Oh yeah,
that's been a part of my career for a long time.
Whether it's PC or whether it's language, right? Like
exactly.
There's
it
things
can be
from
simple
Florida
vernacular, right? Yeah.
You can't say things from Florida. People don't understand the words that we're saying half the time. It's so bad. But
so Andrea, I know you're one of our strong, part of our strong audience and such, and you've heard most of our, if not all of our episodes. Like, what do you think? Like, how do we toe the line between like being PC or like when we had those, like we had a couple of those difficult conversations, like for example, like something like the episode about J.K. Rowling. I'm not gonna speak for Josh too much, but for me, a lot of people felt like I held back that I was being too PC. Because it's like, oh, I know you. Like you wouldn't say that, right? Like you could have went more in. Like, so like, I mean, what do you think about like even like from that episode and just like how we've been handling this overall for the podcast?
I mean, overall on the podcast, I think it's a good balance between both of you of like being able to say things just before, really pushing the line over. I will say we talked about this a little bit before, but that J.K. Rowling episode was a little spicy. Not as spicy as I would have thought that you would have gone, because yes, hearing that episode, I was like, Jay could have gone harder, like 100%. I mean, I know him. He was holding back some. You know what I mean? There was some part of you that was holding back for whatever reason. You were like, probably not a good idea to do it. Also, it was like the 3rd episode, so let's take that into consideration. You're starting a new project. You're trying to get momentum off of this, and you're trying to create a space that invites people, not deters people. So I think that what you all are doing overall is inviting people to the conversation. I'm a perfect example of that, because I would have never, done this. You all had the live like right after that episode, and I'm like, political correctness. I like, put it out there to be able to have the conversation. And I think if you're getting people in those DMs that are willing and wanting to have the conversation, then for me, that's a good job. For me, you're doing what you set out to do. So overall, I don't think the political correctness, even though it is apparent in some instances, not all, I think y'all are doing it the right way, and like being as honest as you feel that you can be.
Oh, I appreciate that. We appreciate the honesty. I know, like thinking back on it, like I think for sure, like I held back, not like I held back obviously because of like the nature of the topic. It's very deep, but like as I said in episode 2, almost what I'm fearful of is the weaponization of cancel culture. So it's like I've seen like it's funny, right? When you see like these Karens, right? They do one thing, and of course, like they do some foul stuff, But once one person finds out who she is, they'll find out your social and do
your job is gone, your family, there's people outside your house.
You're gonna get fired. You're gonna lose everything. And there's like, I'm never gonna justify what they're doing or not, but it's like I'm just using it as an example. Like that could be any of us. We could say one thing and it's just like, okay, he's Josh, but then we're gonna find out his full name, his full government name, and then we're gonna Google it somehow, find out where he's from, and then it's the internet's crazy. So I was like, I held back knowing that I'm a little fearful of cancel culture, but at the same time,
I'm stuff to lose.
Like,
no, that's
space, right? Yeah. Like you have stuff to lose.
Exactly.
So while I would love to be completely honest in that episode, and I felt like with IG Live I was a little bit more myself on that. It's just it's scary when again this is something completely different for what me and Josh are doing. Like we don't do this in our day-to-day lives. This is like a hobby that we eventually want to expand more. So we're not used to being in front of a camera. God knows who's listening to us now, seeing us. This is completely different. I don't want, it's like I don't want to jeopardize anything yet. Yeah. Maybe when I get a strong following, it's like, well, either listen to me or don't, but I don't have that luxury yet.
No, that's fair. I think you're always going to have that in mind. And like with your life changes as well, like there's a lot that goes on. You're a dad now. So your mind is obviously, it's in another space that you're going to be constantly thinking about. Like, I don't want people to find out my whole life. If I say one thing that's not, to everybody's liking, I don't want everybody to come to attack me. Like I got bigger things to worry about than, some happy Twitter hands, going and finding some information. So that's definitely fair.
And I think, we always preface these conversations by saying that we want civil conversations, civil debates. If you disagree, that's cool. We definitely want to hear it in a civil manner, right? Yeah. Like we're not coming for anybody, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but sometimes you just don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Like I know the whole point with me and Josh is we want guests who actually think different than us. Like we want that, to have that genuine talk, to have that, okay, well, you have your view, I have my view, we can debate it out, and then, all right, it's over, we're cool. Not a big deal.
And that's
in a perfect world, at least.
No, but that's the thing. I don't think it needs to be in a perfect world, right? Because I think when people come into difficult conversations, they have this assumption that I'm going to change this person's mind, and I'm going to end up being right, and I'm going to win. You cannot in this world go into every conversation thinking that that's going to be the way that it ends up. It's not real. That's just not how things work. You have to be okay with stepping into a conversation with someone that you completely disagree with and leaving the same freaking way. Like you cannot think you're going to change someone's mind. The reason that they feel so strongly about that is because of their experiences, because of their values that don't necessarily have to align with yours, but to be able to have the conversation and be like, cool, we're not going to be best friends, or we're not even gonna change each other's minds, and it's gonna be fine. You can debate, you can have even a little intense debate. I'm not saying go to blows, violence is not the answer, but I'm saying having a civil debate, you're talking about on the podcast all the time. I think that's important. And if you don't have that, then you have echo chambers. Then you have people that believe the same thing and are constantly telling you that your perception is right, and you don't expand your mind. And continuing to I have had plenty of conversations where I've gone in and been like, I'm going to stay true to everything that I felt. And then I'm like, you know what? Actually, this person is making sense. I didn't think of it like that. I didn't think of it in this, opportunity. And there's nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind.
Andre actually segued this perfectly, right?
I was just thinking that.
I was like, damn. She
did it on purpose.
She beat me to it. So,
the main question exists, right? Has being PC ruined debate or ruined forward thinking?
And Andre, I want to hear this from you because I know you was in the debate club and stuff. So
I know
you love debate. I tell people all the time, people think it's a joke. I literally got the memory of an elephant. I remember things.
You really do, because it's been over 16 years.
What is that? Is that yearbook swag? Andre, I got to see this photo. Jay, you got the
Oh,
yearbook?
I was.
Oh no, we didn't do yearbooks. We didn't do yearbooks.
But I was no. I have to show you a high school picture. I was cute. I had the same hair. I was literally the same person. But yeah, I was debate president. I enjoy debating people. I don't know if you can tell by my constant talking. But I do think that political correctness has ruined debate because, like how I mentioned before, there's not really, you go in with these assumptions that you're going to be able to change someone's mind. And I don't think that's the main purpose of debate. Debating is like to be able to make sure that you are backing your opinion as much and as honestly as you think that it is, right? That you're voicing your opinion as true and as honest as possible with the facts that you've been given. Because I also think that like when you debate people, there's a lot that comes in terms of emotion. And those are two different things. Like when people put in emotions into conversations, like anything that you debate and you bring in an emotional perspective, it's automatically going to be skewed, right? Because you're feeling it and it's not simply based on facts. If you're going into it based on facts, that's a completely different conversation. You have like legitimate resources and legitimate backing to understand like why you feel this way. But being politically correct, you're making assumptions about the other person, even, and I'll put this out there. I for the longest time I was registered as an independent, and because Florida primaries are, you have to be a specific party, a registered Democrat. And when I was doing voter registration stuff, you're not supposed to talk about party stuff, and that was like one of the biggest questions we would always get, like, oh, are you citing Democrats only? Are you? And it's like, it's not about that. It's like your right to be able to vote. And it was automatically like coming in with the assumption that I'm here to like be propaganda machine for everything that is Democrat, like all the Democratic Party issues. And that's not what it is. It's just having a conversation of like, hey, wanted you to vote, wanted you to register to vote. And that was what it is. So yeah, being PC has 100% ruined debate. I don't know how debate clubs even work now. I don't even know how that's a thing. I hope that schools continue to have that, because I think that that's a really good skill to have in life, to be able to talk to different people with different perceptions. But yeah, 100% think that PC has ruined debate, unfortunately.
Andrea, I feel like you answered this question and segued into the next one. But let's table that one for a little bit.
Yes, I want to hear what y'all have to say.
What's your thoughts on PC? Has it ruined debate?
I mean, for me, like definitely, hell yeah, it did. Like whether I'm not even gonna go like Andrea went like this, like school debating. Like just think about like your typical political, like you know, you have these elections, right? You listen to the presidential election or government, like Senate, like doesn't matter, right? But they always have these debates. You know, you want to hear both sides, and then you hear them, and of course they're just saying whatever bull comes out of them. Because I feel like most of the time for me, like 80% of the time, I don't believe a politician, just like at all. So like, you know, of course what they're saying is PC, because they're gonna say whatever they can to just skew the vote. But then you go to somewhere like you got Fox, right? That's a primarily Democratic station, and then
Other way around.
I mean Republican. That's what I meant. I in my mind, I already know what I'm gonna say. So yeah, but then you got them going like hard, like for like 8 years they were just killing Obama for like every little thing, right? But then once Trump comes in, it's like we're going like everything he does is right. Even like when things were coming out and it's wrong, and then you have like every now and then they'll have like these special guests. Like I remember one, like didn't they bring like rappers and such, like trying to get people to like see like, oh no, like other your rappers as a Republican or anything like that. And when they're trying to talk to them or debate them, they're only trying to get to say what they want to say, right? It's all propaganda at the end of the day. And it's not even a debate. Is you're gonna just debate someone to either benefit you, either make yourself look good, or to trash your opponent. So like I'm just thinking of like when I'm thinking debate, I'm just thinking politically, and it's just a joke. And then like if I just have an opinion, like if we go on IG Live, right, and then we have an opinion, I have an opinion on something on an episode that we spoke about, and one of the audience just disagrees with me, and then we're going back and forth, and it's like, do I gotta hold my tongue because I don't want to offend the person? Like, I don't know. I can say anything, right? I can say anything in the world, and there's a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then like we make fun of it, like, or like I'm confused of it, like for example, like with gender and such. It's like I think what I told you, Josh, like I'm a cisgender heterosexual, like it's like so much labeling to me, right? So if
if you don't mind me, I'll chime in, right? So
yeah,
I actually filled out a questionnaire.
yo, there you go. I was gonna bring that up.
And I have never seen these many options when it came to gender that I could not even find my own at male. Like I couldn't find it. It took forever to find it because it was sandwiched just amongst a lot of different other options. I just never seen that before, and that was very interesting. I'm not gonna say it was, whatever, but
it's different. No,
different from how the three of us
I was wrong in what I even selected. Like I didn't select enough stuff. Like I was like, wait, I selected male, but then I didn't select like I didn't select non-transgender male. Like I left everything else, and I was like, wait, let me go back.
Yeah, and then for me, so like imagine if I'm debating someone and I was like, oh, if I say as a Hispanic male and it's like, whoa, no, you're not. You're a Latinx cisgender heterosexual. And I'm like, I'm saying something about me, and then you got offended because something I said, not to you but to me. So then it's like, where does it end?
Yeah.
Because like to me, like the whole Latinx thing is still relatively new. Like growing up, it's like I was Hispanic in it. And Latinx was, I felt like a thing that happened either when we graduated college,
way after we graduated,
right? Like I don't remember that because it
wasn't a thing.
So it's like when I hear Latinx, I'm like, I don't even know what the hell that is, right? Like what am I missing? And then, so then if I say that, it's like, okay, now I'm just having a general conversation. Me just saying Hispanic, and it's like I offended that person who may be Hispanic, even though I was talking about me, not them. So it's like it just never ends. Where like with PC, so any little thing can be digested and like broken apart. So it's like, no, you see, you're wrong because just this, and it's like the nature of my debate or the nature of my conversation is just being scrutinized because I probably said one thing that was in PC, and it kind of ruins it.
True to you,
yeah.
At the end of the day, like that's how you identify. You don't have to identify Latinx to fit, the mold of whatever they want. That's like,
but that's if you're gonna debate someone with Gen Z, good luck as a millennial.
Yeah, I know. I deal with that on a daily.
so like and it's I don't want to keep going because it segues into our next topic. But so I'll let you go, Josh.
Okay, so the question is obviously, has PC ruined debate? I actually think the answer is no. I don't think PC in and of itself ruined debate. I just think people can't debate. Like point period.
So they're not all debate.
I mean,
I really just don't think people base their debates on logic and reason. And
you're right.
And we're gonna segue into this later, right?
But you're right, Josh. Debate's a skill. It's not something that we can do. Like you have to learn to debate.
Yeah. So I think when you have a world of so much stimulus and content, right? Like social media is probably the worst place to debate because keyboard warriors are just going to spew their
Twitter fingers
notions, right?
Meek Mill.
Where is that going to go? So in a lot of those spaces, it's not even worthwhile to debate in the first place. Fair. But I think that we've just seen a lot of commercialized debating, to your point, Jay, that really, what are people who are allegedly, I'm just going to say allegedly, leaders of this country really talking about in these debates? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Yeah. Or they're doing it to pander to, honestly, I can't even tell you sometimes. Honestly, it doesn't make sense.
And to kind of separate it a bit, because I don't want to get like too political and such, but like if you listen to radio interviews like the Breakfast Club and such, they always bring different artists or political figures or actors and such. And let's just say they bring a rapper who's from Florida, and they're talking about the music scene, why is Florida not like not representing more in music? I'm just throwing a topic out there, right? And then maybe the Florida rapper, like maybe Rick Ross or like Trick Daddy, someone says something, and is like, you have the radio host, no, you're wrong. It's like, well, damn, I'm telling you what I think about whatever you asked me, and you're gonna tell me I'm wrong. And I feel like if you listen to a lot of these interviews are trying to be debatish a bit, but you can have a debate if it's you're wrong, and you're wrong because blah blah blah.
Attacking someone. That's not even having a debate.
Yeah.
That's like full on attacking someone just based on like how they feel about something, and that's not it.
I mean, so yeah, that just goes to like what you said, Josh. Like people just don't know how to debate. It's just okay. I understand what you're saying. Now, instead of saying you're wrong, but hey, I think this, and this. And don't just attack me. Don't say that.
So I'll take it a step further, right? I think a lot of people debate on lived experience and assume their lived experience is everybody's lived experience.
Amen.
And that's ridiculous.
Yes.
Like, there is no way that you have the entire history of the world in your back pocket.
Yep.
You've been around for how many years? It doesn't really matter if you're a baby boomer, you're Gen Z. It does not matter. You can't have the same lived experience as somebody else. And so if you debate on that alone, you've both lost because you're both wrong. Like in that sense,
100%.
If you're going off of that, you're both wrong.
And then before we segue, it's funny. This like literally just happened, right? Like talking about PC, and I think this is very much what PC is. Like, this is something very nerdy, but like again, I like video games. So they just announced a new Mortal Kombat game, right? And I'm in a group chat with a lot of people who play video games, and in it, the whole thing is fatalities, right? You kill them in the end, and it's always finish him. So even if it's a female fighter that you're killing, right? So then I'm looking at the chat, and it says, "What if the announcer says finish they/them because you're being PC?" Perfect timing, right? Like.
That's
like
hilarious.
I shouldn't be laughing as hard as I am to that, but that's hilarious.
That's hilarious.
But think about it. But think about it. If you're like a developer, you're an artist, and you create this art, and this is like a legacy with Mortal Kombat, and now you're changing something because it's like you got to be PC about it.
But that's the thing. You shouldn't have to be.
No, but I'm just saying. I agree with you. I think it's funny because we're recording, and literally that happened. Like right now, it just happened. Like breaking. I thought it was appropriate, at least.
Hilarious. That's beyond appropriate. That could not have been at a better time.
We could debate the CGI on Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, like the movies.
Yeah.
We could debate that stuff. My goodness. I look back on I watched one of those movies like a year ago, and I lasted 10 minutes.
It's like a huge thing.
No,
Jay,
man.
you're the movie buff.
No, yeah. Watch 90s movies. It's so bad. It's hilarious. It's all nostalgia, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, oof.
You just watch it for the vibes.
For the vibes. Fair.
I mean, I think all three of us have had some interesting takes on this topic, right? PC and its role in debate. And I think we've all kind of alluded to this next segment, right? Like, are we as a society just too sensitive, or is it the flip side where people are just too easily offended by what's going on? Like, what's everybody's thoughts? And I'll start with Jay on this one. And Andrea, if you don't mind, we'll leave your thoughts to the final.
I knew you were gonna do that. So I can just segue into the next one.
Oh, Jay, if you don't mind, can we get a little view switch?
Oh
no!
There we go.
Legit.
Oh, CNN.
All right,
top.
now we're getting into it.
Now, excuse me.
All right, I guess before I go, let me take a quick swig because I think this might get spicy.
And also, everyone, if you haven't, follow us on Instagram and all of our platforms, genuine_content. Okay, like, subscribe, leave a review, talk to us about these takes. We're going to have some more. We definitely want to hear your thoughts on this one. But Jay, you've got the floor.
So are people too sensitive? Hell yeah. Oh my God, man. Oh my God. I'm not like right-winged in any way. I'm like super liberal. But like, and the term snowflakes is so right-wing, but damn, don't we live in a snowflake type of world this day, man? Like it is what it is, at least to me. Like you can't say anything without like someone having an issue with it. Like everything. Like again, I just use an example of like if I just label myself as a Hispanic male, That's how I identify. You're gonna get mad at me because of something I said, not because, and nothing with you, just me. Or I don't know, like, oh, for example, like, okay, with the J.K. Rowling thing, like, whether you agree with her or not, like, I loved Harry Potter. Plus, I love video games, so it was a dream of mine to play a Harry Potter game. And it's like, well, F you for playing that. You're such a terrible person, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're not an ally. You're not this and not that. And it's like, I can support you and just like not totally agree with you. Like, just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean anything. And that's where people become super sensitive.
Yeah.
Like any little thing, like I can say like like as a joke, you're wrong. How dare you? Don't blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, that was a joke, buddy. But, you know, okay. Like, but it really comes down to like generations where you have Gen Z, which they might get sensitive for me saying that I feel like they're sensitive. Like, like right, there's no other way of saying it.
I get tried for that. Yeah.
But like, I mean, again, that's how I feel. Like, it's obviously every generation grows up different. So like, I feel like with millennials, I'm not trying to like be biased or anything. Like, we kind of grew up way different. Like with millennials, we're kind of in the middle ground, right? Like, we not in the technological world. Like, we was in the birth of technology, but then we still didn't have it like as bad, like with typewriters and such. Like, we grew up where we had these
that's pretty
like
bad, bro.
dial-up. We had dial-up. We had dial-up.
You have to wait for a month to get off the phone. Okay?
Like, I mean, just think about the world where where you can do an essay on your phone, right? Like, I remember me growing up, I didn't have a computer until I was like in 9th grade.
Same.
So like, imagine I had to go to other people's houses to like type up work or go to a library. Like, I felt like, you know, whether millennials had a little bit rough and like that kind of made us thicker skin a little bit. But then when you hear like Gen Z, and I feel like they're very much entitled. And it's like me saying that is like I'm ruffling feathers, and it's like, no, like you guys don't know, like you really don't know, like when you have you have millennials who underwent how many recessions already, how many, like we have 9/11, right? Yeah, you have 9/11, right? Then you had the recession, then you had COVID, and then like just I just top of my head, like there's more to it, right? The war in Iraq and like all the bull that came from that, and now that we got the aftermath from the war of Iraq last year, right? It was last year where we found out it was basically for nothing.
Afghanistan,
basically for nothing. So it's like we hit a lot of these things in our life that generations probably experienced one of those, and we've experienced so much. So trying to talk to a Gen Zer about this or just about anything, like of course their perspective is different, but again, I feel like they're very much entitled, and we live in a world where, you know, you get a ribbon for being last place for participation, right?
I was gonna say
right.
Participation.
We went to participation.
I cannot. That's
wow. We went there.
So
shout out to my local YMCA.
No, you cannot get participation.
So like stuff like that is like, and all that kind of relates to even like being PC, because like any little thing can trigger you. Anything could trigger you now being PC. Like anything could just be offensive to you. And honestly, that to me is very much a generational thing. Mm-hmm. So the floor is yours, Josh. I know I kind of spiced it up a bit.
Yeah,
nothing but facts in my opinion, but okay.
That's a little tough one to follow up on. But are people too sensitive? No. I don't think people are too sensitive. I think that people are self-aware of a lot of like microaggressions that might come on the floor and will easily just chime in on it. Now, I think people are more self-aware. I do think people are more easily offended, yes, or at least willing to speak on it as opposed to just kind of keep it in back pocket. But you mentioned that generational thing, Jay, and I mean, you could easily see like baby boomers who went through World War II saying like we've got nothing on them, right? Like that's just a generational thing, because like I mean, we're gonna say that about Gen Z, we're gonna say that about the next group, so on.
No, but at least with the baby with the boomers, I couldn't even imagine living during that time period. Like, but I can acknowledge that. I can be like, yo, like you guys do have it rough. You had it rough.
Jay,
What?
there is no teenager right now that could live with dial-up. Like period. like they would be like fumbled.
Because you don't know.
In the world with like AI,
No.
like coming soon. Like where all your
No,
like,
no. But look, okay, but yeah, you have the dial up, but you have people who are just like almost allergic to the sun now because you have the internet and stuff going outside.
Well, you have the COVID factor too. Like that's a very
pre-COVID. We talk about pre-COVID. We talk about
regardless. You could go to a park in COVID.
Get that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey man, hey look, hey, don't tell me the COVID factor, because down here in Miami, man, everybody was at the club, and you know you wouldn't think COVID was a thing down here.
Out of there, no way. No. See, there was that 2-week window when everybody thought it was cool, and then everybody just got their stuff out. You know that part, like halfway, like into June, July, like everybody was like, "Oh yeah, you know that weekend, that period's over. We can just kind of do our own thing." And then the second peak hit.
Yeah, but
that was absolutely ridiculous.
But like you're saying, Josh, like yeah, the dial-up is rough, but like we didn't have just dial-up. Like we have broadband, right? And while that's not fast, like 3G, think about it, 3G wasn't as fast, right? But you all you need to do was certain things.
Yeah, you didn't
I was making a minor point.
Yeah.
It's not to the extent of World War II. Please don't think of it that way. But
no, I'm just saying.
It was actually the other way. It was actually kind of being more ironic.
Yeah.
So, like, they couldn't exist with dial-up, and like nuclear bombs were being blown off.
No.
The 40s. Anyway, like I said, I think people now are more self-conscious, more self-aware about things that, to your point, are triggering, but just never went said or never went touched on in the past. And I'll actually give one example. I went to a very private Christian school my entire life, from 1st to 12th grade. And I remember in 7th grade, I was asked the question, mind you, I'm the only Black kid in this class, and this is Bible class. Okay. So I was asked this question in front of the entire group.
Oh no.
Have you ever experienced an act of racism? And I was like, wait, what?
Oh my God.
If I say yes, what's going to happen?
And how old are you?
12.
Thank you. Hard pass. Welcome to class. I'm good. I'm good. I'm calling it a day. I'm good. There's no way having that conversation.
I keep it copacetic. I say no, but obviously I just lied. That's PC, right? That's PC. That's as PC as you get. But that is about as protective as you get as a 12-year-old. To this day, I maintain I said the right thing. Even though it was a lie. Absolute lie. Because what am I going to defend myself against in that circumstance?
I mean, at the time, you know the world you was living in during that time, right? It's not today.
It's just exactly, right?
Yeah.
And so now with more accountability, there is actually more of a world where people can say, yes, like that comment was ridiculous, or that was a microaggression, and people are more aware of these things too. So I would say yes, easily to the more easily offended thing, but I don't think that's related to sensitivity. I think that's related to knowledge in a lot of ways.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that the sensitivity and the offended part are like two different things. For me, I don't necessarily think that people are too sensitive, but I'll put that in there, that although I talk a lot of smack about the youth and their participation trophies and all that stuff, they've also had to deal with like a lot of things that we didn't have to, that our generation didn't have to. For example, this is just because this is the space that I'm currently in, school shootings. That's an area that I have conversations with students all the time. And sometimes I'm like, I could have never been a middle school or high school student and constantly thinking about those things, right? So I think that there are reasons for them to be sensitive. However, I think people overall are easily offended because it's much easier. Like they find it much easier to go to the extremes than to meet in the middle. So any little thing can offend you. And then that's, I think, the problem, really, because you can try to be a middle ground person, but then you find something that like sets you off and then you're offended, and then you're like completely left field or completely right field, right? So I think I don't think sensitivity and being offended are necessarily connected. I think the younger generation in some aspects has had a lot of instances where it leads to them to be more sensitive. I personally will say millennials have been through a lot, like Jay mentioned. I completely agree with that it is a generational thing. I personally don't consider myself to be sensitive. I will say I'm emotional. I'm not sensitive when people, say anything to me, but like let me see a dog commercial and I'm just like tearing up. In that sense, yes, I'm emotional.
Comedy Central.
The little puppies. I mean, I can't. That's just, maybe that's an old person thing now. Who knows? But I don't consider myself to be sensitive because of the things that, and also on top of the things that Jay mentioned, it's also how we were raised. Like, I think that's a big part of this. Like, at least in my household, like my dad died when I was 12. My mom had to raise us by herself, not having planned to have raised us by herself, right? So that kind of gives you a tougher skin too. Like, you see what your mom has been through. You know that, you have to be like a good student and a good kid and like not get into trouble. So, you're figuring your stuff out. I don't necessarily think that had that experience not happened, I would have been as strong-willed in certain areas too. So I think that that's why I'm not sensitive. And I think people get easily offended because we now live in a space where it's okay to be like the extremes, and it's not cool, for lack of a better term, to be in the middle. It's much easier to like hate people, and it's much easier to be like, well, you offended me with this little thing. I do agree with what Josh said about like the microaggressions part of it, but we've just learned about the term microaggressions and what that necessarily is in the last couple of years. Like, there was tons of things that have happened throughout my life that can be considered microaggressions. Like, and I never knew that was a name, and I never knew that was the label for it, or how to respond to something like that. Right? We weren't given. I'm gonna sound super hippie in my terms, but it's like we weren't given the toolbox. We weren't given the toolbox to be able to confront those microaggressions and to be able to understand what was being said to us. So we might have felt offended, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go sit in a corner and cry for like 3 hours and just like not function. It was just like, you know what? They said this. Let's keep it moving. I'm gonna ignore them. I'm gonna prove them wrong. Sometimes people even use that kind of stuff as motivation. I know personally in my life that I have used sometimes when people offend you as, okay, exactly. So when people offend you, I'm like, you know what? Actually, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like, keep it coming. Cause I mean, maybe that's toxic, but I think that's a generational thing where we didn't get participation trophies. So we needed to prove ourselves, and we needed to continue to move like forward and not like just sit and like sink in those feelings. So yeah, I'm kind of like, I think I'm in the middle with this one.
Hey man, that's all we can say, right? That's all we can say about that, right?
Yeah.
But
we covered the whole gambit on this one.
Whole spectrum, yes.
But I guess to end this, right? This is gonna be a good way, especially to talk about like sensitivity and like people being offended. Like, we talk about this all the time. Like, me and Josh talk a lot about this off air about woke culture, and it kind of came about like in some episodes. So like, what does woke culture or being woke, how does that even fit to this? So what is woke? Because I swear me and Josh can't think of the right answer. I just wrote something down, and I'll use this in my example whenever. But Andrea, the floor is yours. What do you think? What's woke? Like, what is this?
For me personally, I'll be very honest. I hate the term woke because I don't necessarily feel like what is considered woke is I just don't think it should be considered something woke. A lot of the conversations that are had under that umbrella are things that is for the improvement of all mankind, for all of society. I think that it's very easy to put a label on something and then attack it. And I think that that's what was done in this instance. For example, defunding the police, that's considered a woke term, a term that not even President Biden wanted to get behind because of the implications of what that would mean. That's like too left-leaning, that's too progressive, that's too woke. And at the end of the day, what defunding police meant is to reallocate funds, right? And I'll be honest, that was something that I had to learn too. You grow up one way your entire life. You grow up respecting the authority. Now my perceptions have changed, but grow up respecting that level of authority of what you were told that was that level of authority. So you obviously feel a kind of way. And then when you're told like you're going to defund, like all of these people were coming in after 2020, after what happened with George Floyd, and it was like, oh, we want to defund the police, but that term was considered too woke. But is it woke? Is it like too extreme? It's not really, if you consider really how it is to break it down. So I think sometimes like considering things to be too woke does a disservice to things that could potentially help society as a whole. I think for me, woke, even though I don't like the word, woke defines things for the betterment of people that people don't really, people don't want to talk about because it liberates a lot of minorities and a lot of people that have been oppressed. Personally, I will say that's a growing curve for me as well. I wasn't born knowing all of this information. I wasn't born thinking like that also, because being a millennial, you are very much told something and you kind of go through your whole life. And I don't know if Jay can attest to this too, but being a Latino in a Latino household, it's like you're following your parents till like a lot of the stuff that, you know, they agree with and they feel. And it's just, these weren't things that you like, I don't know, they just weren't conversations. And also a lot of like Latin American countries deal with, you know, socialism and communism. So that also, it's like a complete, you know, I'll say like a complete counter, right, to the term woke. I just don't like the term because it alienates people, right? Like how Trumper alienates people, or I won't use any other words, but I'll leave it there. But I just think it alienates people more. And that's the problem, that it doesn't allow people to come into a middle ground, right? If I were to come into this space and be like, oh, I'm super woke, I know about everything, you like, would you really want to talk to me? Would you really want to have a conversation? No, because you would be making assumptions. Yeah, Jay was like, nah. Because you would be making assumptions about what I'm thinking, even if that's not necessarily what I believe. So I think that label automatically puts your guard up and being like, I don't really want that.
Okay. Josh, I guess I'll save you for last on this one.
All right.
I know when I think of woke, I hate the negative connotation that woke has, because I don't think, like, it seemed like it's something that the right wing gave to the left wing.
Yeah.
So when I think of when I truly think about woke and like how people use it, like how Fox uses it and such, I guess I'm gonna attack Fox on this one. So
that's fine.
So like it said every episode, I'm the movie guy, right? I'm the movie buff. I love movies, right? Like that's my thing. So like Fox has no problem like attacking like movies and such. Like for first, let me begin. Like when I think of woke, like woke is like so progressive, and it's like the people trying to normalize a new agenda. Like that's kind of like that's the only way I can kind of think of it. So when you think, so like people understand like this is not like the 2000s, this is not the 90s or 80s, like things that were not that, you know, like that weren't a thing then is now, like for example LGBT, right? Like the rights, like the rapid rise of like equality that they're trying to fight for, like it happened very quickly. Like, and I know this because when back when I used to work at my old job, my coworker, he's gay, very much in the gay community in Miami Beach, and he educated me a lot about like stuff like gay civil rights stuff. I thought it was interesting, like stuff you'll never learn in school. Yeah. But like stuff like he taught me like stuff that really happened here. He's from Puerto Rico, so you know how it was from being in Puerto Rico, and then like he was National Guard, so of course that's a thing. That's a thing. And then here, but he was telling me about all the stuff that they were going, and now of course LGBT community, they're really fighting for their rights and such. And now this, and again, this like the new agenda, like this is an example of like the new agenda. And of course it's super progressive and such. So when you have like a company like Disney, where I spoke about this in a previous episode, where they had the Buzz Lightyear movie, and literally it was just it was the couple, they're stranded on a planet, and we find out that she's a lesbian, that she has a family, and they share like a split kiss. And that's it. Like nothing sexual about it. Like I said, she had a family, kids and such. And it was like, oh, there's Disney again being woke, trying to throw the gay agenda to us. And it's like, no, What Disney's trying to do is trying to normalize that not everyone has your Christian views and follow. Like, first of all, not everyone, believes in the Bible and such. Just different religions. So we're just not gonna just assume that Disney is super inclusive, that they're gonna show that it's okay. Like, yeah, you know what? Like, they didn't even make a big deal. It was such a like, I missed it. That's how fast it was. Like, I remember watching, and I knew like the backlash that everyone's talking about, the whole kiss situation. And I finished the movie, and I was like, "Yo, when did they kiss? Or when was that? When was this? Like, when was this gay scene?" And then they was like, "Oh, like I don't know." Then I again, like, fast forward or like rewind it, and I'm like, "Oh, like if I didn't know the dilemma behind that movie, I would have never known that." So you have that. And then you have like the rise of, so Spider-Man's becoming huge now, where actually the new Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is coming out in a few weeks. And that one's about Miles Morales, which is a Black and Puerto Rican Spider-Man. So a lot of us are just excited because, one, like, yes, we got the whole Peter Parker thing. We've gotten that in us since 2000s. And it's like, now we have a different Spider-Man. Yeah. And while it sucks that it's animated, not a
I didn't like the commercials for it.
Like, not live action, but it's still we're finally getting that. Like, we're finally getting a Black Spider-Man, Black and Hispanic Spider-Man, and it's being exposed everywhere. And of course, it's like, well, why that? Well, how come why couldn't it just be regular Peter Parker, right? Or even better, when the Miles Morales game came out in 2020, it was really cool because in it, his mom is Puerto Rican, so every now and then she'll speak Spanish to him. So it was cool. So they're speaking English and they translate to Spanish, and so you're getting that side of it. And then his dad's Black, but his dad died, so he's trying to also embrace his Black culture. And then when you're swinging through New York, there's a Black Lives Matter graffiti. And it's like you can take a picture of it, and that's like an achievement in the game. It's like, oh, there you go. There's Sony being woke because you gotta put Black Lives Matter. It's like, no. Or the last example, you have like Michael B. Jordan playing Human Torch, and of course, I don't know, like 2014, 2015, Fantastic Four movie, and it was like, look at that, of course, Marvel's trying to force in more of this, and it's like, well, it's a fictional character. Like, half the time he's on fire, you don't really know that he's Black or he's white or anything like that. But if it's because you're kind of changing their agenda to something they're not used to, so it's like, it's woke, so it's negative. It's like, no, what everyone's trying to do is normalize that this is the new society where there's the rise of minorities fighting for their rights. You have the rise of LGBTQ community fighting for their rights. You have all these things that weren't okay back then. And it's like I think Josh said previously, like, we're done with this microaggression. We're done. We're more self-aware now.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, so we just want to be seeing, like, why do I got to see a movie? How many movies I got to see of freaking white people where I just want one Hispanic person to show up? And it's like, no, it's you throw a fit because of it. Like, it's gonna be really cool when DC drops the Blue Beetle movie because it's Hispanic. If you watch the commercial, like every article is like, look how Hispanic it is. Like it's very Latin. It's like, that's cool because that's it. That's what it is. Like, they're just showing you like the U.S. is so diverse, and why is it that when we ask for diversity, it's woke, it's negative? It's like, no, it's very normal.
Yeah.
And being Caucasian is the majority. It's slowly not becoming the majority anymore. Sorry to say, right?
I mean, nobody's sorry to say that. I think that's great.
That's what studies showing. Study data is showing that, like, what, in like 20, 30 years, like, Caucasians won't be the majority anymore. I think it's gonna be Hispanics. So it's like, well, Hispanics and African Americans are rising in the population. So I just want my daughter, I want my little cousins, nieces, and nephews and such to see that, hey, they're being represented. Why is it bad? Why you gotta downplay me because you're afraid of your own agenda?
Yeah, it's the discomfort. It's the area where there's discomfort for white people that everything then is considered woke.
It's like, no, it's like, we're not taking away from you. We're just uplifting us.
Yeah,
we can coexist.
There you go. You only
there it is. Yeah. Kiwi baby.
There you go. No, I think that you can coexist, and people always feel threatened to that. And then anything that threatens that comfortability, it's like, okay, it's too low. Toss it out.
Floor is yours, Joshua.
I'm curious of what Josh is going to say.
I actually agree with everything the both of you said.
Hey.
However, what I will say is that I think no, I truly do. I think that woke was the precursor for all of those and not necessarily the term that defines it, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So the way I see woke, and this is Black man in America perspective, right? Historically, the term woke has been just keep your head on a swivel for anything social and environmental that will lead to your downfall. And so for me, the way I internalize that is if I am driving on the highway and I get pulled over by police, that could very well be my last driving experience. And it's just as simple as that for me. I think in the past, it was probably a lot worse, especially like in the South, Bible Belt areas where stay woke was, you have to be careful about being in this area, period. Because if you're in there and you get caught up in something that whether you did or didn't do anything that rubbed people the wrong way, and we're in this topic right now, that could be your last decision.
Yeah.
And I think as a result, you have advocacy, right? Where regardless of the marginalized group that you may be a part of or you may identify within, I think stay woke was kind of that impetus to move those things forward and fight for DEI and things of that nature and make sure that people did not have to be woke anymore.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think that in and of itself, it's DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you're not aware, and I'm just speaking from the audience, and I don't think it's very politicized either. I don't think it's a political term. It was a result of people being lynched in the past and people being lynched now.
Yeah, I think when I think about it, like now that I think about it, because I'm watching Snowfall now. When I think of in Snowfall, they talk about a lot of Black Panthers. When I think of stay woke, I think what the Black Panthers are saying, right? Stay woke on what the government's doing to us, right? Like what the like in the show, like the CIA is bringing in cocaine and is turning into crack cocaine, so they're killing like the minority, the Mexican and the Black communities in California. It's like, see, stay woke, man. The government's killing us, and you guys don't realize it because you're just blinded or you're just hoping the government's for you and such.
Exactly. Like I think of it as being merely aware of where society is, where you fit in that, and whether or not it is for you or against you. And for the most part, when people say stay woke, it's definitely against you. And that's where I've seen it. And that's really where the line kind of drew for me.
It's weaponized.
Now it's a bastardized term. And that's where I was kind of going to, like, right. If somebody has no rational, once again, cannot debate the opposing side, it is very quick for you to just say, oh, that's just woke stuff. And then just dismiss it altogether, like all of us have said, right? It's a very easy way to bow out and buck out of a discussion that you're uncomfortable having, simply put. And so as soon as I hear the term woke culture or the term, oh, that's just woke stuff again, I immediately know that they're just not willing to have that discussion, and it's null and void in their opinion, point blank, period. And it's coming from a place of ignorance because they just cannot fathom a legitimate argument against it because there is none, usually.
And that's them being PC, right? Oh, you're just woke.
But I think that what Josh said about it coming from a place of ignorance, I've always said that, sometimes when people don't want to have conversations, it is coming from a place of ignorance. And it's even more so coming from a place of ignorance because they're too scared to even ask the questions, which I think is even worse than like just dismissing it altogether. Like, you don't even want to know what my perspective is. Like, you don't even want to try to have a conversation about this. And that's like, detrimental for society as a whole.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's like going to my example. It's like, well, is woke because of the movie situation? Okay, but so why does it bother you? Oh, it's woke. Well, why does it bother you? You still have your movies.
Yeah.
Your movies live on, and
You don't
you're
have to
gonna
watch it.
I mean that too, but like you have plenty of movies that represented you previously, and you're probably gonna get plenty to represent you after. I just want one. I just want one.
Yeah.
And have either of you seen the viral soundbite of I forget which show it is or what podcast or whatever it was, but someone very, very sharply attempted to use the woke argument to prove their point, and then the either the news anchor or the interviewer actually literally asked them, "Could you define woke? I just want to make sure that we're on the same page." And she could not answer it.
Oh,
She had nothing. And she literally said, this is going to go viral. And it did, of course.
I mean, you can't.
Because
you have to know what you're
use woke have no idea what woke means.
And that's the problem, right?
No, you just use it for your argument. For
Exactly.
like you use it for your agenda.
Yeah.
Essentially what it is.
To dismiss it.
To dismiss it or limit change.
There you go. That part. To limit change. There you go. That's the nail on the head right there.
Boom. And I think to kind of make it or spin it full circle, right? I really think that lived experience plays a role in that, right? Because if it's not your lived experience, a lot of people would just say it's woke. If you didn't see it, if you don't believe it, if you never lived it, then it's just woke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think there are plenty of things that go past your lived experience. And that's why it's important to ask questions, whether you agree with something, disagree with it. I mean, I'm not going to say that I had all of my ducks in a row when it came to the gender discussion. I still don't. But I ask questions.
Yeah.
But you know
I
what?
still disagree with a lot of it.
It's not even ask questions. It's not even ask questions. But it's not even ask questions, man. Just listen. Like that's really key thing. Just listen to me, man. I'm telling you like how I feel about certain things, but you're not listening.
Yeah.
So
No, I think that's really fair. I do have a final question for y'all.
go ahead. Bonus time.
So after this conversation about political correctness and everything that we've talked about today, do you feel that like after this you're going to go into the world and be a little bit less political correct, stay the same, or be even more politically correct in different settings?
That's a really good question, Andrea. That's a really
Sometimes
good question.
they come to me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like it kind of just always said to me stems down to like kind of know your audience. Like for me to be mindful, like I don't want to be, PC, but then if I know like if I'm talking to someone who's uber sensitive, so if I know I can't say certain things that's gonna, trigger them, then I guess it's my obligation to kind of be PC a bit or try to like, if I could find a way to say something and get my point across without triggering you in any way, then I would try. So, but I think I would kind of stay the same even after this conversation. Even though we had this conversation, I would do my part to be a little bit more mindful.
Okay. What about you, Josh?
Okay. So I would actually view this a different way and say I would, and I mean by what I mean by that is if we go back to one of the original points about are we too sensitive or are we too offended?
Mm-hmm.
I would actually probably be more outspoken about my own offense as a result of this discussion.
So let's
because is it? I don't know.
It is.
I don't know if I would be more politically correct. I don't know if that's what that is.
No, you're less because you're saying it how it is. You're saying it how it is.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So I would be more cognizant of a situation that comes in front of me and be much more willing to say my offense and why, and do so in a way that is not necessarily PC back, but is based on some actual substance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think you can do that in maybe the original PC definition that is not harmful in return.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that conversation needs to be had. And I think that's the fundamental part of this podcast, right? Is having these conversations that are uncomfortable and being able to do so in a manner that's civil. I will say that there is still some code switching that will always exist in my world. It has to.
Yeah.
To Jay's point, you know your audience.
Yeah.
You don't just say whatever whenever. There's common sense still. But I definitely think as a result of this conversation, and even I would say as a result of this podcast, I am more willing to speak, not necessarily my truth or whatever, but speak on things based on facts, based on less from my feelings and lived experiences, and more from a more objective standpoint.
So it's sounding gonna be a little bit more like me. Just say how it is.
I love it.
Jay teaches me a lot. I promise. Jay's gotten me out of some sticky situations because he'll just say it, and I'll be like, "Thank you. I tried.
I'm sure he has.
Because I don't because like I don't care, because like sometimes like again, like if you try the PC route and it didn't work, then I'm gonna just say how it is. Like obviously it didn't work, so it's like, well, we're gonna go the other way.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and then I've lived through enough to say to know, like, man, I'm just gonna say how it is, because I'm tired of this. I've lived through too much already
I will say though, to combat it, I come from a world where if it was a he said, she said discussion, I would lose. And so that's kind of
that's fair.
Well, there you go. That's my lived experience, right? Yeah. I did that as a kid. I got burned for that bad, to the point where I was not a bad kid growing up, but yet I almost got expelled I got an altercation with a teacher's kid. Got an altercation with a teacher's kid.
Yeah, well, you know how to pick them.
That 10 out of 10. I mean, once again, the only black kid in this grade, this class, this space, right? I didn't pick them. They picked me. And so I got picked. I defended myself. I lose regardless. And so I learned my lesson very young that sometimes you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
That's fair.
And I took that to bank.
That's very fair. Yeah. I'm glad I asked.
Well, what about you?
Like, I
was gonna get off the hook. I mean, honestly, I'm just glad to be able to have these conversations, because the code switching thing, you definitely that hit something in me, because as much as I try to stay away from that, because I mean, I hope nobody from work watches this, but I've been called in several of my previous roles a white people whisperer when I do code switch. I know. And that was something that I didn't even know existed. So I've always tried to move away from that, because I feel like that's not being authentically myself. So when we had this whole conversation, that was something in the back of my mind. Like, I think being PC in certain circumstances, like, for example, being with your family, sometimes I'll be like PC and not try to start something because you love them and you want them around for the rest of your life and all of that fun stuff.
Giving political talk.
Yeah. And then, but in like a professional setting, I'm much less PC, because I feel like that has a lot to do with like the work that I want to do and like the work that I am doing. So I need to be as much as a trusted voice as I can be, right? So I think it's been an eye-opening experience. I think I'll stay the same for the most part, but I just think it's been interesting to talk to both of y'all of how that it's played a role with how you all live your lives and in your previous experience, professional and personal. But yeah, I think I'll stay the same.
Okay, cool. To our listeners, our viewers, I truly hope that whatever you take away from this discussion and conversation, that it's productive for you, regardless of where you kind of lie on this discussion, debate, what have you. If you have a take or a comment or something that you would like to speak on about this, follow us on our Instagram, comment on our future posts at genuine_content spelled with a K.
Come on, Josh, point down.
Right under you.
Well, it's right behind you. It's right under you. You've got the down. I've got the diagonal a little bit. But yeah, we would love to hear all opinions, regardless of your walk of life, regardless of where you lie on left, right, between. It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
This is really all about driving society forward with conversations that matter, and that's why we talked about this. We really felt like this was something that was a big topic and something that we really wanted to address as a barrier to conversation. Period.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrea, thank you for lending your expertise.
Thank you all. This was fun.
We really appreciate you taking the time, and this has been one of our longest one.
This is the longest one.
I was trying to beat the record since y'all told me how long the other one was. I was like, I'm gonna be long.
I had a feeling we were going to shatter this one. That's what it was.
At first, I'm like, oh, we're not going to. And then I was like, oh, dang, we're at 50 minutes and we haven't hit 2 topics.
I told you I talk a lot. I gave you the warning.
Hey, words that needed to be said. And hopefully heard by all of our future listeners and current listeners as well. But thank you all for listening in advance. Jay, any final thoughts?
Nah, man, I very much enjoy this convo. I feel like overall this conversation, this episode is kind of the theme of genuine content as a whole. So kind of sucks that it took like 8, 9, 10 episodes, depending on which episode we number this. But it took a while for us to finally get to this conversation, but I'm glad that we did. I appreciate Andrea for taking the time as a new mastered grad. Again, congrats.
Yeah, I was about to say that too. Congrats. Like, hey, can we have a second to Andrea, if you don't mind, kind of talk about that a little bit. Like, here's your 5.
Oh man,
5, 6, okay, like shout it out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I actually just graduated this past weekend with my master's from the University of Oklahoma in global affairs with a focus on international security, because my end goal is to be a diplomat. So yeah, first step into that world. So thank y'all for shouting that out in the congrats. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but overall it was a good episode, man. But yeah, Josh, man, this is a good episode overall. And I feel like every episode we get better. Especially
like pros at this point.
Whether it's the chemistry, whether it's the questions that we're asking, obviously the quality that we're doing. So I'm just happy that it's getting better and better, and we're slowly hitting that lucky number 10.
Yeah, the road to 10. I think if you actually count the quick takes, I think we might be there. But,
we'll technically be there. Well, starting when's the next episode? The next episode will release on the 24th. So by the 24th, we will have 10 somewhat.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yes.
Stuff.
And it's, Andreas, because of people like yourself and everybody who's listened to us to this point, stay tuned for more. We're going to keep it coming. We're going to keep getting better. We're driven by this and we think there's something good from it. So this is genuine content, genuine conversation, genuine vibes. Thank you all again for tuning in. Peace out.
Peace.
Let's get the fuck out my face.